So welcome to our weekly 8FM book club on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. And we are continuing on with The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. So we're going into chapter 11, 12, and 13. So just kind of some opening thoughts. Thanks, Alicia and Terry, for being here, and whoever else joins us, and if you're watching live or the recording. Yeah, I mean, it all kind of blends together, right? But for me, there's a few things that kind of really stood out to me. But really it was on page 226. I know we kind of have different copies, but where he talks about the gap and how we kind of experience this gap, and the gap creates tension in our life. And the gap references, we all have like a dream or a calling or something that we want, right? And it's kind of like first having the courage to even look at it, because just in the process of looking at what we want, we immediately feel the lack of it. And so it's kind of like being okay with feeling that uncomfortable feeling of not having what you want by confronting what you want, right? And so I kind of see it as a coin. He always talks about pennies, right? But I think of this coin and how it's like two-sided, and how the coin represents kind of what we want, but one side is that we don't have it, and one side is that we can't. And it's kind of like, the way I see it is that, we have this tension that's created because we're not there yet. And it's just, I don't know, I love the way he puts things together. And it's like this idea that if we choose to accept it, it's almost like we have to choose to accept that tension that we feel constantly as we're filling that gap and getting closer to our dream, which can take any amount of time, right? I mean, if we're doing something new that we've never done, it's not like we can put a time on it or, say, okay, I'll only feel this way, this tension for a year or however long. You don't know. And so it's kind of also accepting that we'll feel that tension, right? And it's like people talk about it, right? The being out of your comfort zone and, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Or the other side of it is just letting go of the dream and letting go of that tension. Because in those, you can either choose to live with it or you can choose to just let it go and not have it, but then never get that thing you want, right? And then the other way is obviously by working for it and getting to that point where you close the gap and you have whatever it is that you're working for, which again, kind of, it can be something too that's like even an ongoing goal in your life, right? Because as we reach goals, we have new goals. And so I don't know, I just see it as like this coin where we can choose to live our life either with the slight edge working towards us or for us, or working against us. It's like we have this choice. We have this constant choice that we can live with. And it's just what side of the coin we decide to kind of live with. And it's like this, I don't know, I guess my mind works well with visualization and kind of like symbols. And so for me, this coin has become this symbol, like not just because it's a penny, and a penny isn't nothing, it's something, but as this idea that we have this constant choice. And I've always heard people say this, like even Dave Wood says this in audios and stuff, but the difference between a successful person and a not successful person is really just a million little things. And they used to frustrate me because I used to, it's like the thought is, well, that's, how am I ever supposed to figure out those million little things? Because we all kind of chase that one thing or that one secret thing that we want, right? But having the knowledge that it's a lot of things can also be kind of, I kind of felt like it was like I could never have the answer, but the slight edge is that answer. And it's those little choices, those little things that we think are so insignificant, but really that's all it is, right? And it's just making that choice to kind of live very consciously and not let, unconscious, maybe negative patterns take over and be on autopilot. But that's where the tension comes in, because you have to constantly kind of get to that point where it can become automatic. But in that stage, it's, you you see 10 people do this thing, right? This other thing that's easier in the moment, but you choose the thing that's the opposite, right? And it's like standing apart from everyone and having this thing where you're uncomfortable for a really long time and everyone else is kind of comfortable, right? I don't know, it's just a lot of thoughts about that. But then obviously as time progresses, we become more comfortable, and unfortunately people become less comfortable. Go for it, Terry.
Awesome, Kat. Yeah, it's like, yeah, he's like, either way, the tension will resolve at some point. You'll move incrementally towards, from point A to point B, towards whatever that calling or dream is. Either way, you'll resolve it by moving, or you resolve it, yeah, by just kind of giving up on that dream. But the tension gets resolved. But like you said, it's like staying with that willingness to be uncomfortable with the experience of wanting to be experiencing the point B when you're still at the point A. And it sort of touches on another part of the next one of the next chapters, which was around, it was talking about the unconscious and the conscious mind, and how the conscious mind can only sort of focus on different things for a certain period of time before it can't stay focused. It has to, it can only focus on things, like it can't focus on everything at the same time, whereas our unconscious mind is like keeping all of our physiological system happening, and it's like it can focus, it just doesn't lose focus. And so the idea is he's like, create your intention with your conscious mind, like your intention to move to that point B, and then using those slight edge principles of just repeating small actions over time towards that. And then there's a point where it does shift, and it's like then your subconscious mind can take over, and it is like things are happening automatically because you're just accessing a whole different part of your brain that doesn't require your conscious focus to keep choosing to do those small things. It's like it's just part of your life, and things evolve. So that was just I like that. And one of the other things around that gap, like that comes from some of my other kind of training, is that so often it's like that uncomfortable gap when people are like, they're aware of that dream or their goal and they want to move towards it, but as they move towards it, it feels really uncomfortable. Partly because, it brings up that awareness of that gap, and it also brings up parts of us. Like as we step towards our goal, it brings up parts of us that have doubt, that have fear, that have all this, just self-limiting beliefs. And so often people at that point can go, oh, this feels uncomfortable, so it mustn't be the right path. And they'll make a decision at that point that I'll back off back into my comfort zone and stop moving towards my dreams because of the feelings that come up. So I think such a big part of closing that gap is about that willingness to experience uncomfortable feelings and keep just processing them with the slight edge and keeping your vision in mind. And the other thing he said at some point was, I'm kind of jumping around the place, but around correcting course, about being, having that image of your goal, your vision, where you're moving to, and just knowing that you have to stay aware and be able to just correct course along the way continually, and keeping that as that focal point. It's like you just keep that as a reference, that image in your mind of where you're going, and be able to just continually just do little course corrections, and the willingness to keep doing that. Yeah. So that was a bunch of the stuff that I got out of these chapters. There's lots more, but I'll pass it over to, Alicia, if you want to jump out or whatever. I love this book. I think I've said that before.
I'm still going through it. Don't admit that I haven't finished it. And y'all are reading a book that I don't have parts of it because this is the old version. So I'm learning a little bit from you guys. But some things y'all talked about, I'm kind of struggling a little bit with is I think I don't know how to describe it. That like I guess the pain part, or like you said, the dream, like how you get past it. Like I'm thinking there's nothing that I feel like there's parts of like I've been in pain for so long, like it doesn't phase like what's going to happen, since that's never really happened before. So I think I'm struggling, like especially like when Lawrence was like, what are you going to do? And like it wasn't you're going to do like no matter what's the point you're going to do, like failure or whatever. But I'm like, it's like always been a constant. So I'm trying to figure out, I don't know how to describe it. If I guess I was more specific, like, dang, I can't pay my bills again, what's going to happen? Like, well, they're just going to sit there. So I don't know. That's like the pain, you know, I don't know. But I've been really focusing on the power of reflection. I don't remember what, this is my chapter 8, because I know y'all probably have already talked about it or something way back then. But I think this part, I've been stuck on it because it helps me reflect myself before I start worrying about mastering and my part and the different parts. Because this one goes through how to really analyze, and it has like it's a workbook plan and parts to keep out. So the questions that I guess that's why I got stuck was the reflection questions that take time, that people don't really think about. Did you eat well, or did you eat badly? Who did you associate with today? Did they empower you? And so the power of reflection, thinking, what did you do that was, instead of writing the to-do list, write what you did, accomplishment. And I remember I did this one time, like in one group, let's write what we accomplished today instead of what we got to do tomorrow. And that helps you see, oh, I really did accomplish a lot today. And that enabled me to say, I can do this plus more tomorrow. So that's helped me gain more of this like edge that, okay, I've got a regular routine. I'm sharing the daily shortcuts, and I'm figuring out this is an easy process. Got my short link, and I'm going to Hootsuite, and I'm going to eventually move it over Mass Planner, however my routine is to share it out. And then going, what can I do to improve that slight edge? Going, okay, now I have time to add more pictures to my Instagram and work on more of my training videos that I need to do, add more to my slight edge that I'm adding to there. And that's how I'm accomplishing more, you know, every day, and seeing more of that reflection of, you know, that positive, did I engage in positive conversation today? And so those reflections has helped me increase in the slight edge that I want to keep making every day of more positive, moving up instead of like, dang it, I'm focusing on, dang, I didn't pay that bill again. I still can't pay that bill. You know, kind of I'm stuck and there's no solution to it quite yet, where I can focus on my accomplishments and going, I have skills. I can keep increasing that slight edge of what I can increase my skills going. I can work on that little section on the piano a little better and delete the one I've got. You know, just all those little things, every parts in my life, and also reflecting. This one's powerful to what my daughter looks at, and seeing how she experiences different things. And I think I realized that going, girl, why don't you record me while I go perform over there? And then watching back how she records is like all moving around on how she, you know, does her little thing. Going, that's how I need to reflect on what she looks as me as well, and how I need to find more of her accomplishments, and thanking her of, you know, how I can take her through that slight edge too. So reflecting in these different ways, I kind of focused on that part. And eventually I'll get to more of the questions. But I think if I accomplish learning that one lesson, I think I'll make it through the rest of the book a lot easier. I kind of got stuck on one part. Everybody's at a different pace, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And that's awesome. And it is, because it, like the way he writes the book is still kind of repetitive in a sense. It's just presented in a different way. And you know what you were talking about in the beginning about like this tension um, it's kind of like, and same thing like with Terry kind of touching on it. It's like, people talk about their intuition, right? We have like a gut feeling about something, right? And how we're supposed to follow our intuition, I guess. But at the same time, if we're following our dreams, it feels uncomfortable. And so, because I guess people think of intuition as something that's supposed to feel really good. Like you feel so good all the time, right? And this is where that confusion can come up, because we're conflicted. So what is actually intuition? Is intuition, if it feels uncomfortable, it feels almost bad, then maybe we feel like we're not supposed to follow it. And that's where this doubt can kind of get us stuck for even a really long time, or just constantly. It's like, I've had times where I feel like I'm moving forward, but then I just keep stopping and stopping. It's because it's like this constant, conversation, and he talks a lot about thoughts, right? But, what's the difference between intuition and being okay being uncomfortable, right? It's like trying to, merge those two together is interesting. And I guess, it's kind of funny because Lauren's talking about, the perfect day exercise, right? And the visualization, having that image, right? Kind of like the rocket knowing it's going to the moon, being off course 97% of the time, just only knowing the destination. I see that as the only thing, really. Like, that's why clarity is so important, because as long as the destination is clear, I kind of like the example he gave, that if we're like, let's say 97% of the year we're off course, that means what? Like 3 days we're on course, where we can feel good, like we're really doing it, but then like the rest of the time we're like, what are we really doing? Just constantly like, okay, like that feedback story he was giving, where it's like, okay, adjust back up, 0.0%, 0.03, and then adjust back again. And it's like, we're doing that constantly every day. And so it's like this, I don't know, it's just this interesting thing. I'm curious, Terry, what you think, like this thing about intuition and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think it's a life journey. And
well, I mean, talk about mentors too, right? So
you're talking, yeah, and one of the other things he was talking about was the investing in yourself. And it's like, it's that what he talked about is like, give me that quote, give me 6 hours to chop a tree down, and I'll spend 4 hours sharpening the axe. And I feel like, it's all of this internal, so much of this inner work, and doing the little things daily in a strategic kind of way. But it's that inner journey, which has got to do with the intuition. It's got to do with the willingness to be uncomfortable and be with ourselves, and like all of that's sharpening the axe, to me. So, but it's like we've got to harness, which he talks about in earlier chapters, that sort of that understanding that you can't always see immediate results with slight edge kind of way of approaching things. The small daily actions that may feel like failures or may feel like nothing's shifting are actually compounding over time, and that you are actually sharpening your axe before some kind of the automation, it kind of takes over as it slips into your unconscious mind, that to kind of harness that trust. I think trust is a big thing with intuition, and it's a big thing with a success journey. That and also, he's talking about if you want to be successful, you've got to increase your rate of failure, because that's how you create more success by, higher rate of failure actually increases your progress towards success. And so I think that's just a really useful way of seeing it, of sharpening the axe is a majority of what we're doing. It's like we're correcting coursing, we're sharpening the axe, however you want to put it. It just feels to me, it's like there's a spaciousness in time and a trust around it all, rather than you're meant to be succeeding straight out of the gate, immediately with massive results, like bam. And if you're not, then you just slam yourself down and give up. To just know that, well, it's a process. There's some of my thoughts.
Thank you, Terry. That's like it. I mean, it can sometimes feel counterintuitive, because like the one thing too is the things that we're actually doing we've never done before, and so the newness in all of it's different, right? And we almost don't know how it can feel, right? We just have to have that trust and that faith in the direction, right? So I mean, this book is really, it's funny because I'm reflecting on, because I read it before, and totally, like, I almost didn't like it. Like, it didn't really resonate. I thought it was okay, but this time around, it's like totally opposite effect. It's just like, everything is like, it's like I've heard these things and I've heard them in different places and tidbits here and there, but the way he just puts it together is just so right on the money. Like, it's just like really, like how he says, you can read a book and you can read it, every year and read it as a completely new book, because we've had experiences and perspective shifts. And definitely, I mean, I was thinking of this book because I read it and definitely will come back to it and probably listen to things or read things I haven't even heard before. So really kind of interesting.
Yeah. Hi, Paley. Hey. Yeah. And the mentorship, the chapter on sort of mentorship and the power of the mastermind, and just that thing of choosing who you associate with, or questioning, like if you're that who you associate does have an impact, and to really question, if I really modeled and started having a life more like that person that you're associating with or being mentored by or something, do I really want to have a life like that? Or is it like, I thought it was just, the way he put it in the book was just, rather than getting all sort of starry-eyed about some part of someone's life, and sort of modeling after them without actually questioning, if I was living their life, is that actually what I want? I thought was a really useful way of, just choosing who you spend your time with, who you associate with, knowing that it does impact, and that you do actually want to, really associate and spend your time learning and being around people that if some of those traits were to kind of, you would start living a bit more like that it is how you'd actually want to live, not that it's sort of just one aspect that is actually out of alignment with where you're coming from. So I don't know if I described that really well, but it kind of made sense to me as I read it.
Yeah, for sure. It makes me think of character too, and just like the values, like philosophy, what he calls it, right? Just seeing a person's philosophy, and relating to a person's values and the way they live their life. And I like the story that he wrote about how when he started working at that airport, and how the director took an interest in him, and by him taking an interest in him, he shifted the perspective he had of himself, from thinking he was just this average person to then starting to think that he was more than that. And it was also the way people viewed him changed because of this director giving him that attention. So I just found it's interesting how, perspective shifts always are what helps us to see something different, and how it can also change how we look at ourselves, and allow us to take different actions and different steps too. So I think that's interesting, which is why I love our community, because we all help each other with that. That's what we're all here for, which is fantastic. So just any closing thoughts before we wrap up? Any last bits? No. Awesome. So
actually, no, I do have one very last thing.
For sure.
There was a last bit of the first chapter from this week. It was around he talked a story about a funeral and how he had a shift when he just really, really got it, that the people who have large funerals are people who have stopped worrying about what others think and are just acting on a vision and a deeper kind of calling, and are just taking action in that way rather than holding back. So it allowed him, some kind of light bulb went off for him when he stepped into what was previously uncomfortable for him, because he just realized that he wants to make a bigger impact on the world. And somehow that seeing that funeral stuff for him was like, I'm going to die. And I'd rather have left a bigger impact, and I'm just going to stop worrying what other people think. Yeah.
And I loved him telling the story of how he was sitting in his car. He's just like for half an hour and like couldn't get himself to go out, but that one thought, and he totally failed the whole sales presentation. But he was so elated after that he had done it, and finding that happiness in the failure and seeing the success in it and just overcoming it. I think that's awesome. I love those little stories he has.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
And I don't know if you noticed, I don't know if it's in both of your copies, but you know how they have the stories about people, like personal slight edge stories. The one story about the guy that he couldn't even pay for milk for his baby. I don't know if you noticed the name, who it was, Art Jonak, who's like this majorly huge social media guy. Who's like, he does mastermind events and all this stuff. And I remember studying a bit of his social media philosophy, and he was totally like this person that really connected with everyone, and like he has really good I just found it interesting that he was the one that chose this story, and that he had applied Slight Edge and had gotten this massive success, right? Because he's immediately successful. He's the quote we've all heard, if you understood residual income, you'd run through a brick wall to get it. That's from Art Jonak.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So next week we're gonna start closing out this book soon. So we're getting into chapter 14, 15, and 16. So what we'll do is, next week we'll do 14 to 16. And then the week after, we'll finish up the last 2 chapters and wrap up the book. So we have 2 more weeks of this book. So we're going to start choosing our next book. And then what we'll do is we'll start making these public. We'll do public, hangouts. And so if you ladies or anyone watching has suggestions as to the next book, we're going to start choosing the next book. We can do a poll in 8FM and choose that way. So any book suggestions, anything personal development, business, anything kind of, even kind of a little bit more mainstream so we can get more people on, right? But something awesome. If you have any suggestions, let us know. And thank you so much. I always love our discussions. And we'll see you next week, Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Bye-bye.
Awesome.